Hi, everybody. This is going to be an adventure because I have a repair guy outside with my husband showing him where we've got some kind of critters coming into our attic, and our dog, who has no clue how to not bark, loves to bark at everything that moves. So I'm going to try to get all this out very quickly. So where this came from, this is a Christmas devotional, and where this came from is I was listening to the song Silent Night, and I started just kind of laughing at how odd it is to say that the night Jesus was born was a silent night. Like, there's no way. Like, it was not silent, right? Because, first of all, they were taking a census, so it was a very busy town, and just, it was a city. So they were busy and making noise. There was no room for Mary and Joseph in the inn because all of them were booked because of the census. There was also angels declaring in the heavens in a huge host. I mean, like gobs of them up there singing. So it wasn't a silent night. So it's like, did a deaf guy write the song? I mean, like, you're thinking, like, what? So where do we get the idea of silent? I think it's because there was silence. There was silence in the palace. There was silence in the synagogues. Maybe not literal silence in the definition of the word that no one was making any noise. But the people that you would have thought that would have known, that would have celebrated, that would have thought it was a big deal, royalty coming into the earth, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords coming into the earth, it was silent. The people that should have known didn't know. All of that was very quiet. And the only people in that category that knew were strangers from so far away. It took them 2 years to arrive. It was a very silent night from those that we would have hoped to have declared what was happening. And when those angels made that declaration, nobody was aware of how amazing this declaration was. So even then, it was a strange thing that the shepherds kept wondering about and questioning, what does this mean? What does this mean? It was a silent night as people were clueless that this was not a night to celebrate a king in the way that we celebrate him, and that one day we will celebrate him. This was a night of somber reality. Yes, it's joyful to have a baby. Yes, it's joyful that the Lord has come. But he came to be a sacrifice. The silence of that night was that none of us knew what that meant at that time. Nobody knew. The silence of the time was also the silence of our hearts, not knowing the King had laid down his splendor to put on flesh, to become the sacrifice for all mankind. And he redeems us as we surrender our hearts, call on his mercy. His righteousness is applied to our lives, and we become righteous through him. This sacrifice was huge. He left everything to be born as a humble human being in very difficult circumstances, and lived through a normal childhood and teenage life, ignored, probably even ridiculed and mistreated to a certain extent by fellow synagogue training young men. And so one day it won't be silent. It will no longer be silent. Every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. But we can make our voices heard now. Let's don't be silent. Let's celebrate and let's show his love. And then that way, on the day when the people who are silent, who were silent, who stayed silent, have to then celebrate that he is the Lord, we will have already made our voices heard.